because it's the case study for your exam, which you will not be able to read in your 3-hour exam. Curtin said, oh, well, why don't we just give an extra half an hour to read in the exam? So they're going to extend the exam to 3.5 hours. And I said, nobody is going to read that in half an hour. It's going to take a couple of weeks. And that's why I asked Chifley to send this out to everybody right away. So you've got a couple of weeks to go through it. It's a large case study. One of the questions may well be, why? Why did this organization require a high-rise warehouse rather than a traditional flat warehouse? These are the sorts of things that you may like to look at as you're reading through it. So accounting and finance is obviously going to involved in this decision. In the type of facility that you have, Coca-Cola needed to decide that they wanted an automated high-rise warehouse. You have to decide why they needed that particular type of warehouse, and why they didn't have the traditional type of warehouse. As globalization becomes more relevant in modern business, decisions as to where a facility is located becomes a really critical issue. This is not simply about following cheap labor, but locating facilities that offer the best strategic advantage. For example, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, which is certainly not a good example of this time, has parts that are produced around the world, including Al-Ain. Parts of the I hasten to add that it is not the lithium-ion battery that is produced in Al-Ain, but parts of the 787, as is parts of the 380, the Airbus 380, are actually produced in Al-Ain. So these parts are outsourced throughout the world. It's where you actually get to produce them. Remember, last week we talked about globalization. To think global is important. Not just to think about local production. If we're genuinely thinking about global inference, we have to think globally. Scale economies are based on the notion that large units are generally more economical because fixed costs can be spread over more units of production. When we talk about this break-even analysis, there is a fixed cost and there's a variable cost. So if you've got a fixed cost, the fixed cost is more likely to be fixed with one rather than, and the variable cost remains the same. So generally the cost of building and operating large production equipment does not increase linearly with volume. Administration cost of one large facility is generally less than the administrative cost of two smaller facilities that produce the same volume as the one large facility. That's because you have levels of management that seem to be put into place with each of those facilities. I have to tell you that universities, I'm not really bagging universities, that's where I get my money from, but universities are really great culprits of this. Throughout the world, they don't think of themselves as universities, but more as colleges or faculties within a university. Each college or faculty has a dean, for example. And it's very seldom that you would get the interaction between each of those colleges. Even though, you know, a college of business and a college of IT may, in fact, be teaching the same subjects. But it's turf wars. You know, we call it business here, we call it IT here, but it's exactly the same thing. So you have an administrative framework which requires you to have administrative staff for both colleges. In these terms, you can be talking about having one larger organization, which is infinitely more effective in an enterprise perspective. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about thinking about an enterprise rather than a silo type organization. So there's economies of scale. However, there are also, on the other side, there are diseconomies of scale which can actually occur. As a facility gets larger, diseconomies of scale occur for the variety of reasons. So a large facility may incur more transportation costs. It may cost more to actually get it to a less than ideal environment rather than everyone doing the same things. Administrative costs are often higher in large bureaucratic organizations because of the sheer layers of management that need to be in place. And also the costs that are added. As you add more things into a single organization, it can become very complex. So there are economies of scale, but also be aware that there are diseconomies of scale if you get too large. This aggregate planning is concerned with matching supply and demand of output over the medium time range up to 12 months in the future. The aim of aggregate planning is to set overall output levels in the near to medium future in the face of fluctuating or uncertain demands. It's not what we're doing within the assignment, but in the, in your homework. We're doing more of an operationals one with this one. What we are talking about is getting a broader, when we talk about aggregate planning, how much do we need to make over a 12-month period? What does the capacity of our plant need to be over a 12-month period? There are some capacity cushion options that you can follow. You're trying not to run out of stock. You're trying to build to average forecasts. And you have got equipment which you need to maximize the utilization of that equipment. So those are three ways in which you can use this capacity cushion. But each time that you put more stock in, it's going to cost you more. People might consider that as waste, of having too much stock in, a buffer stock. There are two opposing strategies that as an operations perspective you can adopt. You can either preempt the competition by building your facilities in advance of the demand. This is probably the riskier one because you are relying on a continuing demand or the demand to extend in a particular area. McDonald's and Apple do this in a particularly nice way. McDonald's site their stores not necessarily in places that are already full of people, but in areas that are likely to have people in the near future. So they get in before the people are there, which is not a bad strategy to use. And they use this very successfully. Apple, on the other hand, use a strategy which says that even though people don't want to actually do, I'm picking up a Nokia now. I'm talking about Apple with the Nokia 920. This is the Windows phone, by the way. They can say, well, maybe in the future somebody is going to buy this particular one because they want to be able to look at it, and a video starts and look away, and the video stops, which is one of the features of the new iPhone. Samsung. It's Samsung does this. But Samsung and Apple are really good for one another. They're both in that marketplace. Both of them are swimming away from the shark, right? In this particular one. Who's going to win? I don't know, but I'm not too sure whether Nokia are even in the water at this stage. But they put features into their systems that people don't even know that they want just yet. Maybe in the future that they want it. And Apple are certainly innovative in that way. They're putting features into the systems that nobody else has. They're being very innovative with their approaches. There is alternatively a wait-and-see attitude. That is, we won't actually go and do anything with this. We'll wait and see what happens in the marketplace. This is first mover advantage up here. You know the term first mover advantage? The first one that moves into a marketplace gets gets the cream. They get the best returns.
They will follow.
The wait and see people will follow. The first mover advantage applies to people like Amazon. Amazon are the first in the marketplace, so they were always able to get an advantage over the rest of the marketplace. Even though the product may have changed considerably, it's the fact that they were first in the marketplace. Everybody who looks at Amazon and says, oh, we want to buy a book or a CD online, we go to Amazon. They were the first in. So first mover advantage in a marketing sense has a certain advantages towards it. US car manufacturers and the small car market went the other way. They almost went too late. They waited until the US car buying public was screaming out for small cars. And the only people that were supplying the small cars were Japan. So Japan actually moved in to the US market and really changed market demands in the US. It was the US car manufacturers were very, very slow to actually pick up on that trend. They waited and see. Ooh, they always worked on the principle, people will want to come back to the big gas guzzler cars, so in the end they want the big ones in the end. And certainly people have come back to the inefficient mileage cars. But generally, it's the small cars that are still very, very popular in the US. Even today, I'm not sure whether the US car manufacturers have really cottoned onto this. They're waiting and see. They're dreaming that their traditional models will come back into vogue. I don't know how long they will last. This is Little's Law. Question 2 of your homework. It relates the number of items in the system to the arrival rate and length of time in the system. You know, I know that what I said, but we're running out of time. I was going to get somebody that's actually working specifically in this area in Dubai Airport, who knows more about this than I do, to actually come up. But I'm not going to go into detail, but maybe next week when we talk more about Little's Law, I'll talk about, I'll ask you next week. Please come. Yes. As soon as this system is in a steady state, I is the average number of people in the system. That is the queue of people. This is queuing theory, basically. T is the average throughput time. If you are going through a scanner at an airport, how long, from the time that you queue up and start putting your stuff into a tray, the metallic objects in the tray, or take a coat off or whatever, how long before you can actually pick it up at the other end? How long does it take you to get through? And it could be 1.5, 2 minutes. In Heathrow, it's probably about 10 minutes. Taking your shoes off, your shoes on, doing all those types of things. So, how long does it actually take to get through? So remember what these I's and T is. Now R is where everybody makes a mistake. R is the average flow rate in the process. So, if it takes, I'm sorry, I'll give you a mistake here. The T is the average throughput time. How long does it take for that row to get through, those I to get through, the number of people? You've got 100 people, for example. How long does it take for 100 people to actually get through? What is your waiting time? What's your, how long is 100 people going to wait? Now it's the R, which is the average flow rate into the process. Now if it's going to take you 1.5 minutes for each person to get through, the flow rate is not 1.5. What you have to think about when you use R, and it is quite a simple equation, is it not? I equals T times R. But you can do lots with that I times T times R. I equals T times R. The flow rate is how many people can you get through in a minute? Not how many minutes it's going to take to get one person through. Okay. No, it's as simple as that, even simpler. Let's do it very simple now. If you can get one person through in a minute, how many people can you get through in a minute? One. If you can get one person through in 2 minutes, what is your flow rate? 0.5. You can get a half a person through every minute. So you've got to put this one back into minutes. If it takes 30 seconds for you to go through the scanner, how many? What is R? 2. You're too clever in Sharjah so far. That's the way that it actually works. It's not how many people per minute. I'm sorry, it is people per minute. It's not how many minutes per person. Yes? As long as you work it back to that particular one, how many people per minute, not how many minutes per person. Yes?
Yes. Right.
How many people per minute? It has to be in terms of minutes for this one to work properly.
Okay. Got it.
And if you've got a average throughput, an average flow rate into the process here, let's say that you can get through in 2 minutes, then you know that it's 0.5 people per minute. Then you have a certain number of scanners. That's per scanner. That is per scanner. And then you have to multiply that by the number of scanners to actually meet your critical time. Let's talk about that more next week. But that's the little small. This is the other question we've got in. It's to calculate future demand based on past performances. But assuming that you, by whatever method, achieve a forecast, by whatever method, qualitative, quantitative, combination, exponential smoothing, whatever, then the calculation of how much to produce takes this form. Your planned production is your forecasted demand that you've done up here, plus your safety stock that you've decided you need, less your stock on hand. Less the stock on hand. Again, it's a simple equation. The key, of course, is this safety stock. Safety stock is, we already tell you what safety stock it is, and you don't even have to make a decision. Some examples of forecasting, the VIMTO forecasting exercise, and I knew I put Sharjah International Airport somewhere, the security scanning exercise for Sharjah. Have a look at that particular one. It is not too onerous a task to look at those two homework questions. If anybody has any difficulty with them, or has anybody got an answer that they want to test, here's the way to test it. Increase the throughput time, or double the throughput time. So let's say it takes 1 minute to get through, then double it to 2 minutes. And then work out by the way that you've worked it out, how long it's going to take, how long T is going to be. If it's more than what you started with, by doubling the time of waiting, you know you've done something wrong. Remember that the R part is 1 divided by the time through, the reciprocal of. But we will talk about this. I don't want to leave you dry with this, with these assignments. It's important that you do the assignments simply because it's a way of acknowledging, or of chiefly acknowledging that I've done my job and you've done your job as well. But it's not supposed to be the definitive way of you getting value out of this course. But unfortunately, there's administrative things that needs to be done. we weren't being recorded, I'd say that I hate assessments of this type. I'm going to say that. There is your references. We have finished with time to spare. Are there any questions before I go?
Thank you.
Let's see you next week. Could I also ask the people who came here early at 8 o'clock benefited from some videos that were actually shown. I hope you benefited from those. It was about the concept car, one form of production method. We also showed the BMW production process, different types of processes. So please try to be here promptly next week. I know it's a Friday. I know it's an unfortunate time to start at 8 o'clock, but that's how it is. Thanks guys. See you next week.